Okay. Yeah.
Right. So I think we're recording now. Yes. Okay. So hi, everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Angela Demopoulos. I'm the Senior Director of Alumni Engagement and Board Operations here with Erica. Our other teammate, Steve, is out on parental leave right now. So we're holding down the fort and enjoying working with all of you. Um, this is actually the first time that we've hosted this specific session. But as we're gearing up for recruiting new board leaders to either your regional, affinity, or academic board, we just thought it might be helpful to talk through the process. While we know that every individual board kind of works a little bit differently, we at least wanted to give some like general suggested guidelines on like how to approach this really important topic because you want to make sure that you feel comfortable and really understand the process when you're recruiting new leaders for your board. So next slide. So why this matters. So you hopefully already know this because you're already a board member, but your alumni network feeds into the greater alumni association, which feeds into the university. So you all like play a really, really important role, and we just and recruiting board leaders who play a really important role like this all matters so much. So as people become volunteer leaders and they develop more Maryland pride and they become more engaged with the university, that helps our reputation, increases rankings. You're helping just connect other, like current students, our future alums, mentoring them. You play such an integral role. And keeping Maryland pride alive, really, by hosting your game watches and all your great events, that all these things that you're doing really matters. So getting the right people in these positions is really crucial. And so while sometimes you can be like, oh my gosh, we got all these great applications, don't feel like you necessarily need to take every application. You all are our ambassadors, you're our cheerleaders for the university, and so it's really important that we get the right people as the face of the university out in their communities. So I've said it already 5 times, I'll probably say it 15 more times, but like the work that you guys do is really important at the Alumni Association and across the university. So keep up the great work, but it is important work.
Sorry. Okay. So, this all can be found on the volunteer handbook, pages 12 to 13. So really a lot of this session is just to highlight what's there, to answer any questions, and maybe a refresher for some of you all. We have added in some guidelines just to really help. We noticed that different boards were sometimes doing different things with elections, and so we wanted to make sure that the process was equitable across the board. So we just kind of got our heads together to try to find a process that will hopefully work for everyone. Um, so this is like a bird's eye view of the timeline, and we'll kind of go a little bit more in depth throughout this presentation. So, and some of these deadlines are kind of coming up soon. So if you're having trouble, reaching these, please let us know. We can definitely kind of really work with this this year. So ideally by March 1st, all of the current board members would declare whether they're going to return or roll off. So this would be for folks who are nearing the end of their term in their role. Like if you're a treasurer and you've completed your 2-year term as treasurer, are you planning to run again as treasurer, or, are you planning to hopefully become just a member at large, or are you planning to kind of roll off? Just so that everyone on the board can get a sense of how many people will be rolling off and how many people that you all need to be recruiting for. Um, then by that March board meeting, so our recommendation is that there's a nominations committee that I'll get into later that will review elections. Really, this is review applications. And this is really if you have like five or more applications coming through. If you usually get less than five applications, then we would recommend not needing a nominations committee because that should be something that the full board could review. But if you do typically get more than five, then we certainly recommend a nominations committee so that there could be a little bit more eyes on the applications. And so that nominations committee should be elected by the board so everyone knows who's reviewing that. And then by April 1st, April really starts the start of our board recruitment season as far as the marketing side. And so that's why that part is on the timeline. All applications need to be collected before May 31st in order to stay on track with
How are y'all?
voting and with
Good.
and with just making sure that the new folks start at the start of the fiscal year on July 1st. June board meeting, really all of your voting should be done by the June board meeting, with the nominations committee having submitted their recommendations prior to that June board meeting, so folks have time to review that before voting if you do have a nominations committee. And then by June 30th, you should have sent the full board roster to your staff liaison so we can get that all updated in our records as well. Make sure we're communicating with the right people. And then for the July board meeting, that is when executive roles should be voted on. And so this gives a chance for everyone who's currently on the board to have an opportunity to vote for who will assume those executive roles if there's any vacancies, like if terms have ended, and will allow an opportunity for there to be a little bit of time between voting for new board members and then also figuring out who's going to be on that executive, like assuming executive roles. And executive roles are really any roles beyond member at large. So the board should be voting on that. So that was the timeline. Oops. Away. Excuse me. Sorry, I have a little cold, so hopefully everyone can hear and understand me. Marketing the board application. So on our end, we'll definitely help with a lot of this, but we certainly encourage and recommend that each of you and your boards also help to market the board applications. So there will be a recruitment website. We currently have one up with some language that says when board recruitment generally happens. We also will include communications in the shell, which is our all alumni email. And then you can take advantage of marketing through your Sunday emails. So that's 2 opportunities per month. So in April and in May. So 4 overall opportunities, which should be good. Some other ones that we recommend using like a QR code at events. If you need help with a site that will help to generate a QR code, let your staff liaison know. We use them all the time. We can help put something together. And then personalized follow-ups to event attendees. So you generally get the email addresses for your event attendees, and those are obviously people who are interested in your events. So it might be a great pool of folks just to reach out to let them know board applications are open and, see if they're interested in applying. I think that's it for marketing. Sorry, keep going the wrong way.
So while we do a lot on our end for the Alumni Association to help market your application, as Erica alluded to, it is really helpful when the board reaches out to alums that have attended their events in the past. You all probably see familiar faces and have a good vibe of like who you might want to recruit. So we also ask that you do some of that personal follow-up and ask people to join. A lot of people, it just takes a personal ask to get them involved. They might not feel like they're able to be in a board leader position, but having that invitation come from you would mean a lot. But in addition to that, it's also helpful, in this next month or so, doing like a needs analysis on your board and seeing like where there might be gaps. Maybe you have more of like a lot of people that are interested in event planning, but you don't really have anyone that can serve as the treasurer, or you have all women or all men. Or you have like a lot of recent grads, just kind of doing an analysis to see like where you might want to focus your efforts. And then, if you identify a gap, you can, reach out to your staff liaison and say like, hey, we realized that we could really use like people, in this, if they're a business major, or we really could use people 50 and under, or like whatever the need is. You can ask us and we can kind of like hone in on a list for you to do a little bit more targeted outreach. Otherwise, it would be through your regional emails that you have going out. But, before you do anything, it would be helpful to know like what you actually need on your board. So that's that. And then the way that we've been collecting, you can go to the next slide. Collecting applications. So right now, as it stands, we have one application for all of DMV, just because it's been working. And then the staff person will send the appropriate network the application that comes through. I put in the chat like how we have it for all the other groups. So you can click on that link that I put in the chat. If you have a different method, feel free to update us on like the application. But that's the way it's currently been working, and we haven't received feedback that they'd like to change it. So we'll keep doing that model unless we hear otherwise. It's also helpful. We generally know when boards are full versus if they're open to receiving applications. But like, for example, I've had a few people reach out in the like last couple of weeks, usually after I send a volunteer newsletter, who want to join a board. So like Annapolis, I sent them an application. And I've told the alum too, yeah. I've told the alums like, look, board recruitment isn't officially taking place right now. I have an initial meeting with them just to give them like an overview. I encourage them to attend their events, to get to know the board leaders, get a vibe for like if this is something they might want to get familiar with. But I don't put the expectation that they would hear from the board until the spring. However, the board has the flexibility to reach out if they're in like need of more people. So there's no pressure for the board to reach out if they're good. But if we get people and they're like, we need more people on this board, please keep sending us applications if they come in. And like, of course, we can do that. Again, DMV is pretty unique because we set up that application. So you probably receive your own applications if you're in New York or New Jersey or wherever. But that's kind of how it's been operating thus far. Any questions so far? I know we have a lot of talking, but if you have any questions, feel free to come off mute.
Yeah, are you able to provide a just maybe a chart of all the applications that have been received by region? Is that something that can be done prior to the spring?
I mean, I have the data on the DMV, but we don't get applications from the other networks, so I don't know what they've received.
And
Oh,
are you looking for just like numbers? Like, tell me what you're looking to do with that info.
yeah, I'm trying to look just to get a ballpark of the numbers, and I guess if it's just the DMV area, that would be sufficient.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Lynn, did you have something?
Do you have an idea as to how big a board should be? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, we'll cover that, but generally we suggest 5 to no more than 15 is
okay,
kind of like standard. 15 is a pretty large board. But 4 is like, I mean, really 4, I think is the minimum.
even 5 is long. I mean, we've got 7 right now, and it feels like everybody's getting a little burned out. So, okay,
Yeah. And I would say, like, if people are getting burned out, I would scale back on the events. You know, you guys especially are like really rocking and rolling, and that's amazing. But if you're getting the sense that it's getting to be too much, for sure, like take a month or so off, or two off events. Preferably not for Do Good Month, but like, you know, after that. May,
Yeah.
June.
It's so funny because the one person that has never done an event all of a sudden this year has done like 5 events. You know, she's like really into it, and I'm like, go, go.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, and I know Angela mentioned this before, but really the goal is to have quality engaged board members. So, having a board of 14 is lovely if everyone's engaged and, each person's putting on an event and coming out. But, having a very well functioning board of 7 is also really great too. So that's why this process of elections and applications is so important, because this is kind of the filter for figuring out, if you have folks who are really committed to hosting programs and really sticking with the board. Okay.
Such a good point, Erica. Thank you for saying that. Really
Yes.
important.
Oh, sorry. One more question, and forgive me, Chalier, is that how
Oh
you
yeah,
say it?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. I'm from the NOAA board. So I hope it doesn't come off as an odd question, but can one applicant apply to multiple boards at the same time, especially if this is the same application, a centralized DMV template? So let's say if the applicant is interested in 2 boards, and if their first choice, if they're not selected or it's backfilled for whatever reason, can they join a different board?
So ideally for regional boards, which is the DMV application you're referencing, ideally we would like the person to be serving in the region that they live in. However, we know that it's a lot of overlap. I live in Howard County. I work in Prince George's County. I mean, it's like we're all very close. So if there's a situation where like Nova is full, but like DC is desperate for people, like we're not going to say no. And I think those things are already happening anyway. So I guess, yes, that can happen, but we wouldn't want somebody on the Nova, like lives in New York, lives in Northern Virginia, serving on New York's board. I mean, that's not ideal because they're not going to be able to like really pull all their weight. But I think Nova and DC, yes. Nova and Moco, yeah. If you're neighboring, that's okay.
And that's also why oftentimes staff liaisons will reach out to folks who have applied just so that we can help in getting a sense of interest. Because it would be really unfortunate if a nominations committee was like, yeah, we love this person for 3 different regional boards, and then everyone's like, yeah, let's elect them, and then then you're kind of stuck because you don't have that person if they chose to go with another board. So having that middle person who can kind of give you some insight on their interests is another thing that we try to do in those interactions.
Right. And we also could help, like Montgomery County has been full for a while, but it's like, oh, are you interested in joining the CMNS board or the UMBA board? Like as a staff person, we have a higher lens, so we can kind of filter them if they're interested, if the regional board may be full. I know, Joe, I was looking at you. I was like, I know. But hey, I mean, we know that the majority of our alums are here in the DMV.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll jump into this slide, but definitely please continue to ask your questions. I know a lot of questions are coming through the chat, and so we're trying to answer those too. So yeah, either way is totally fine. So I've kind of outlined this in the timeline, but the reviewing applications, this is really a timeline if you have a nominations committee. If you don't, then obviously the applications will need to be reviewed before you vote in your June board meeting. But if you do have a nominations committee, Of course, they'll need to be elected by the March meeting, and then they'll need to review applications. The standard in which they're reviewing applications should be developed using that analysis that Angela referenced earlier. Like, what are the needs of the board as far as like thought diversity, etc. And the nominations committee should be reviewing through that lens and then providing recommendations and notes to help you understand, if you're not part of that committee, their thoughts through the review. And then they should, if they're making recommendations, make those before the June board meeting. Okay. Oops. The voting process. So elections should be excuse me, conducted with at least half of the board present. So there is a majority established. So if June, I mean, I know we're getting into summer, some travel season. So if June is going to be a month where the majority of the board will not be in attendance at that meeting, then talk that over with your staff liaison, figure it out as a board when exactly before that July 1st timeframe you all can meet so that you can have more than half of the board present. And then, and this would include folks who are rolling off because technically their term will end until June 30th. So they should be included in these elections as well. And then elections should be confirmed with an identified majority vote. So whether that's through raised hands or written down votes or what have you, it shouldn't be an anonymous vote. I don't think that, I mean, it's never really been a problem, but we just wanted to name that just so that, you all have a chance to talk about votes or, talk through any issues if there are any. As a note, the only person who isn't able to be part of the voting process is a past president. And ideally, your staff liaison would be there too to kind of help talk through any questions. But please do make sure that you've at least invited your staff liaison to attend the voting meetings so that we can help. And I think that's it. Okay.
Okay, so we're getting close to wrapping up the process. So as we've mentioned, general elections really should be done at the June board meeting because we really want to try and have this new board implemented for July 1. So all applications should be elected to fulfill that member at large positions, and then the elections for the executive positions would happen at the July board meeting when you have all the new people present. And then the nominations committee needs to be sure that they follow through with all the people that have applied for the board, and we have a letter that we can send you as a draft to just notify them if they would be moving on or not. And all of that information, like, please copy your staff liaison because all of that information does get coded on the back end, regardless if they are being accepted or not accepted on the board. We still need to be aware of that. So again, particularly for the non-DMV group, since we really have no pulse on like the applications that come through. DMV, obviously we do see that, but it's important that we keep track of like, oh, this person has applied multiple times. Like, it's good for us to keep record of that kind of thing. So that's about the roster. And then looks like Erica's gonna wrap us up.
Yes, so training and onboarding, as Angela alluded to, we have welcome packets. We generally will try to put those together at the start, like early July, mid-July, and try to help get those out. And if we also have like the volunteer handbook, a link, we'll have the link to the expectations form that folks need to fill out, the code of conduct form. So yes, please keep us in the loop as you all are making those confirmations. Volunteer conference, so more to come on this, but that's another great like first step to invite any new board members to. Great way for them to connect with other board members and just kind of get a lay of the land as far as their role on the board. Angela has been sending out pretty frequently a monthly updates email for all board leaders. So we try to continue to update that list so that anyone who has been added to a board or ruled off of a board is updated in our contact. But as soon as they've been confirmed to the board, we want to get them on there so that they are in the loop of what's going on or any updates from the Alumni Association. Monthly president call. So this would mostly be for new presidents, but it's just good, I think, to even share that that's happening and is a way that you can also connect with other boards for events or for issues that are going on or for just general questions. Virtual trainings, so we'll have those every once in a while. I think we just had one about alumni Q access. So please encourage new board members, current board members to take advantage of those virtual trainings. And then staff involvement. And I know each of us try to visit your board meetings a couple times a year, but we are always available via email or phone for any of the board leaders. I know we usually connect a lot with presidents, but all board leaders are welcome to reach out to us. So just sharing that with them as well. Okay, so I haven't had a chance to take a look at the chat. I'm going to stop the share because that's the end. But what